Well, good afternoon or hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Heyde. I'm from Trend Micro, and welcome to this session titled The Future is Vulnerable and Misconfigured. Now, let me start by saying I truly believe that the future is bright. And no, you're not in for a security doom scenario session. That's not the goal. But let's look at what we see happening, what we see coming, and how we can prepare to make the future bright. So let's go back in time. And no, let's not go back into 1985, Back to the Future, but I want to take you back somewhat 10 years ago. Actually, just when I joined Trend, just over 10 years ago. And we were in discussions with many customers on how they could embrace virtualization and new technology to go onto their journey to the cloud. And then it was already clear that security and how they would apply security in this new reality had some challenges. Actually, this same discussion, we could have that discussion also today. Now, let's have a look at what happened in 2020. Clearly, the pandemic had a big influence on how we as companies were dealing with digital transformation. It drove projects much faster than we anticipated. It drove cloud adoption much faster than we planned. And let me refer to a study that we did actually end of 2020. We interviewed over 2,500 IT decision makers in all type of industries, merely focused on large enterprise. And we asked them about their vision on cloud, digital transformation, and what the impact was of the year 2020 and COVID. Actually, in that outcome, the respondents confirmed that for more than 88%, organizations accelerated their digital transformation projects. That's enormous. What they also confirmed is that not only did they accelerate, but they shortened their digital transformation and cloud project cycles. So it had a big influence not only on how we adopted cloud, but also how we worked on those projects, because the delivery cycles became shorter. Now, what we believe is that even post-COVID, this is the new reality. We won't go back into the old style of delivering projects. So how do we adapt to that new reality? How do we find a new balance in how we will deal with those challenges? So now let's have a look at this from a security angle. In that same survey, the feedback we got from respondents is that 92% of the interviewed organizations said they really understood their cloud security responsibility. 92%. But at the same time, 97% confirmed or said they believed that their cloud service provider offered sufficient data protection. Interesting enough, 55% of the respondents say they use third-party tools to secure their cloud environments. So this might lead us to the conclusion that there's a gap between what the security responsibility is for the customer and actually how he deals with it. This automatically brings us to the whole discussion of the shared responsibility model. And it can't be clear enough for anybody in our organizations using cloud. The moment we look at using cloud, it's important to analyze what type of services are we using and what does this mean for the security responsibility. The likes of Azure, Amazon, Alibaba, Google, they actually are responsible for the security of their cloud. You, as a user, as a customer, you are responsible for what you put into the cloud. So once you use their infrastructure for adding applications, adding customer data, data stores, if you put applications in there and you run a certain OS, that's your responsibility to run the security and ensure the security of that environment. It cannot be clear enough. So let's look at how then cloud brings us to another very important topic. Because actually, if we talk about digital transformation and if we address cloud, we cannot leave the whole DevOps discussion away. So how do we look at adding that new way of working with our dev teams and operational teams, knowing that we are using much more services than cloud than we did ever before? The whole idea of bringing dev teams and ops teams together is crucial in how we want to adopt more and more cloud services. Now, again, we cannot have that discussion and silo security out. Security is an integral part, or should be an integral part, of that whole discussion. So let's have a look at what the respondents say when asked for who is responsible for that security requirement. First of all, if we asked developers, security teams, and operation teams who is responsible for security related to software and software development, we see that a lot of people indicated that responsibility lays with the developers. Asking that same question, but then asking for the responsibility on infrastructure security, we see that those responses are much more equal between developers, operation teams, and security teams. So it is crucially important that we set the culture, or that we address that culture challenge, because it's a shared responsibility also for those three groups in our organizations. So actually, DevOps is much more than a technology discussion. It's much more on how we drive the culture for those teams to work together. So let's have a look at using cloud services and driving those cloud projects, what this means in the application development cycle. We actually have seen an explosion of the use of open source to boost and to accelerate how we develop applications. Currently, we have over 40 million developers in GitHub. Tremendous amount of people using a lot of that content, and even 80% or over 80% of that content for developing and building their own applications. So when we see that that big chunk of open source code ends up in our applications, in our enterprise applications, we need to be aware of the risk that we might bring in our environment. Looking back last year, we actually saw that the number of vulnerabilities in open source code doubled in the last 2 years. So we just need to reflect on what this means for our own applications, because otherwise, tomorrow will be more vulnerable. Our own applications will be more vulnerable. And to illustrate, this is an example from the Sneak report, where actually 9 out of the top 10 most popular container images on Docker had more than 50 vulnerabilities. So if we know that is the case, we have to deal with it to contain the risk. Now, let's look at what we should do to rethink this whole process of bringing security closer to DevOps and what this can mean for our organization. When we see and have a look at the application development, it is clear that the sooner we address the potential security challenge, the more efficient our investment will be. In other words, if we wait until runtime to react on a potential security issue, instead of addressing this during the plan or coding phase, it might cost us 30 times more to address the security challenge than if we would have done it right from the start. Now, this is easier said than done, because again, coming back to the security culture, it is bringing DevOps together with security, really coming to a DevSecOps group of people thinking alike, taking the same responsibilities, or at least looking in the same direction to achieve the same goal. So this is all regarding using open source code. Let's have a look at what else happens in the cloud and with our hyperscalers. So let's have a look at the growing cloud services. The main players, AWS, Azure, Google, and Alibaba, have actually over 4,000 of cloud services they offer today to cloud builders. That's a tremendous benefit for us to speed up the way we build applications or how we use cloud in all its forms and all its flavors. Fantastic opportunity. But there is a downside to the services that these cloud service providers offer. And that is actually that today, studies showed us that over 65% of cloud security issues start with misconfigurations. And that's why if we don't address the situation, we can say tomorrow will be misconfigured. Now, this is not necessarily negative, as I said. If we know it exists, we can do something about it. Now, these misconfigurations is something that we're aware of. Yeah. A study our colleagues in UK did recently showed that 95% of IT decision makers consider cloud misconfigurations as a major data security risk. So the awareness is there. Great. 27% of them actually last year already experienced such an event. Now, if we see that probably today only 20-ish% of enterprise applications have moved to public cloud environments, we can expect this misconfiguration challenge to become even bigger in the future. Now, let me give you an example of what we do with a configuration service we offer. And that service, until today, is actually detecting 230 million misconfigurations every day. So there's a lot of ground we need to cover to ensure that while we are adopting cloud, while we are using cloud services, we do it in the right way, in the secure way, and in a way that we don't misconfigure the usage of those services. So cloud, but hey, what about legacy? Many customers we speak to have a clear dependency on important legacy applications. So not everything can move to the cloud, or people simply don't want to move certain applications, environments to the cloud. So is it okay then to say we leave that as is? No, it isn't. In the same way, like we have an opportunity to address how we address actually security when moving to the cloud, when adopting cloud services, let's also include how we will deploy, how we will impose security controls on that legacy environment, all through a same approach, a same strategy, a same platform even. It's critical to ensure that out-of-support systems, out-of-support applications and OSs can maintain and can stay up and running as long as possible. Let's extend those life cycles if needed. And that is where technologies like virtual patching are true gold to our customers. Because at the same time, we not only protect the applications against and the OSs against vulnerabilities that we know exist and that might come in the future, but we also keep protecting them even if they are out of support systems. And the same approach is valid for protecting applications in the cloud. So let's not forget legacy in this whole way of thinking. So what is then the outcome? First of all, security as an afterthought is not working anymore. And actually, I would challenge that it has ever worked. But today, it's even more important to plan ahead with security and make it a strategic imperative. We have to offer our people, our teams, the flexibility to use whatever application, whatever cloud resource, whatever resource they need to support the business. And we need to be able to do that by guaranteeing security all the way. So bringing security into the development cycle, bringing security to cover our legacy environment, bringing security into covering what we have running in the cloud is critical to support our cloud adoption, our future growth, and will be critical for the success of our digital transformation. This is something that is possible. It's possible if we address security in a strategic way, if we think about the right platform, the right expectations, and if we deliver on those expectations to our teams. I'm sure that this approach can support any ambition on any digital transformation project. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. And I'm looking forward to continue the discussion together.